What's up, everyone, and welcome. In this episode, we are going to talk about Netgear, specifically vulnerabilities with our products and how this affects you, the consumer. Now, even though we'll discuss Netgear, there is a much bigger issue here with many, if not all, hardware providers.
Oh, drat these computers. They're so naughty and so complex. I could pinch them.
First, I want to touch on a report from way back in August. Early August, to be kind of exact. There was a report that Netgear will not patch 45 router models that are vulnerable to a high-severity remote code execution flaw. The router company revealed it in August. However, the company says that routers that won't receive updates are outdated or have reached end of life. The remote code execution vulnerability in question, which was disclosed June 15th, allows network-adjacent attackers to bypass authentication on vulnerable Netgear routers sans authentication. The high-severity flaw affects 79 Netgear Wi-Fi routers and home gateway models, but Netgear says that 45 of those router models are outside of its security support period. David Henry, the Senior VP of Connected Home Products at Netgear, stressed that customers using both newer and older router models stay updated on security updates, as well as adopting best security practices, including turning off features like remote access or changing admin passwords, which he said is enforced by Netgear. I think it's really important that customers are paying attention to the updates we send out quarterly on our products, said Henry.
Pardon me, sir, but could you...
At long last, my dream come true.
Hey, Doc, wait!
Now here's my problem with that. However old you and I are, our parents, they're definitely older, right? Yeah, okay, a couple of fathers, like marrying some 20-year-olds, and moms are marrying some young hot guys or whatever. But they're not marrying these younger people because they're IT professionals who are going to take over support of their router. That's just not realistic. In fact, once a router is actually set up, most people treat it like a set it and forget it. They never think about it. Unless you can't get online, then what do? You reboot it. That's it. Other than that, most people aren't thinking about routers like this, what updates do I need to check for my Fritzbox or my Netgear or my this, that, and the other thing. So months, years, decades can go by, and as long as it's still working, why would you upgrade? Why do you change it? So who thinks about it? Who besides me, and of course you, are checking regularly for updates on their router? Or if the router is end of life, how do most people figure that out? How do most consumers actually find that information out? A quarterly report that most people probably aren't going to get because very few people are filling out the registration form. So I really want to know. So let me know in the comments below if you are checking your router logs regularly, or your parents, your brother, your sister, whoever. Because maybe, who knows, maybe I'm crazy. Maybe it's really just me. Now, my router actually sends me a monthly review of activity. I had to set it up a little bit, enter in my email address and all that kind of happy crap. But I get a monthly review showing me what the activity is, whether there's an update available. But I still wrote scripts that check out my logs or pull down my log files and check for who's trying to do like port scans and things like that. But that's me. That's what I do for a living. My 76-year-old mom? Nah, I don't think so. She calls me monthly just to get her Wi-Fi password, or for me to remind her how to reboot her router because she can't get on the online. So now here's the next story. Netgear has released firmware updates to address high-severity vulnerabilities in more than a dozen of its smart switches used by businesses.
Give me that! Oh, no, I won't. Oh, yes, you will. Oh, no, I won't. Oh, no, you won't.
Oh, yes, I will. You take it or I'll shove it down your throat.
Okay, you big bully. I'll take it this time, if you're going to be nasty about it. But I'm going to tell my big brother, and he'll fix you up, boy.
The company fixed 3 security flaws that affect 20 Netgear products, mostly smart switches. Technical details and proof of concept, exploit code for 2 of the bugs are publicly available. Netgear has addressed 3 vulnerabilities tracked by the vendor as PSV 2021-0140, PSV 2021-0144, and PSV 2021-0145 that received a CVSS score between 7.4 and 8.8. The flaws affected multiple products, including the following smart switches: the GC108 series, PPPP TV3, the GC110 series, TPP, TPP3, and TUP, the GS308T series, GS310 TP, GS710 TUP, GS716, GS724s, GS728, GS750s, 752, and MS510 TXM and TXUP. Two other vulnerabilities were reported by security researchers Ginval Coldwind, who also released a proof of concept exploit code for both issues. Netgear GS110TPV version 3 Smart Managed Pro Switch with SCC control enabled is vulnerable to an authentication bypass, resulting in the attacker being able to change admin's password, among other things, resulting in a full compromise of the device, explained Coldwind. The experts pointed out that the SCC control Netgear Smart Control stands for Netgear Smart Control Center is disabled by default and must be manually enabled in the web UI. Now, the researcher also published a proof of concept code that changes the password to alamakota1234. Netgear on the advisory page rated the issue with a CVSS score of 8.8, which is high, while Coldwind assigned it a score of 9.8 because network should be used even if the attacker is required to be on the same intranet to exploit the vulnerable system. In other words, the attacker can only exploit the vulnerability from inside a corporate network. The second vulnerability reported by the expert is an authentication hijacking issue. Netgear GS110TP version 3 Smart Managed Pro Switch is vulnerable to authentication hijacking, for lack of a better term apparently, that allows an attacker with the same IP as a logged in admin to hijack the session bootstrapping information, giving the attacker full admin access to the device web UI and resulting in a full compromise of the device, reads the advisory published by the researcher. The obvious limiting factor here is the requirement for the attacker to either have the same IP as the admin, which means a foothold on the same machine with limited privileges, or the same NAT IP, etc., or being able to spoof the IP with various low-level networking shenanigans, as he wrote, as well winning a race condition with a 1-second window, which he says pretty easy actually. The researcher also released a proof of concept exploit that will attempt to win the race and hijack session bootstrap information. So on the surface, it looks like Netgear is giving preference to business customers, but I don't think that's the case. I think the issue here is on all levels. I don't see or hear about these manufacturers being proactive enough to test their own systems to ensure clients are as protected from the manufacturer level as they claim in their public statements. Sure, there are bug bounties, but paying $50 for someone to test your entire software or hardware is not very competitive or attractive. Furthermore, dropping support for older models based on some arbitrary date is far from keeping your customer security as a top priority. So, think about it. Let me know in the comments what you think. With that, I say thanks for watching. Don't forget to share. And if you haven't, subscribe. And if you haven't, smash the bell. And I'll see you on the next episode. Take care.